All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Magic Bricks webinar, our endeavor to empower you with insights on the Indian real estate market. The topic of today's session is Earthquake-Safe Homes, a myth or reality? And our guest speaker today is Vasudevan Suresh. He is the Vice Chairman with National Building Code of India. V. Suresh is a civil engineer with over 50 years of experience in housing, urban development, infrastructure, and real estate sectors. He was former CMD HUDCO, contributing to its all-around growth in housing, innovative infrastructure development, and financing, use of appropriate technology applications in the built environment. He was responsible for the formulation of the first National Building Code of India in 1970. And now the Vice Chairman of NBC 2015 version. He was Chairman, Government of India Task Forces for Kamoli and Rudraprayag earthquake and Orissa super cyclone for the post-reconstruction efforts. He is the Chairman of IGBC Policy and Advocacy Committee, Chairman of Housing Committee and a member of Smart Cities Committee of BIS and member of many committees of central and state governments on housing policies, and CII and IAMC committees on housing, infrastructure, and real estate. He has received 15 awards, including Industry Doyen Award from CIDC in 2011. We have Jayashree Kurup with us, who is a head content and research with Magic Bricks as a co-speaker. She is a business journalist with over 2 decades of experience in working with print, online, and electronic mediums with The Times of India, The Economic Times, and The Financial Express. She specializes in analyzing real estate data to come up with usable solutions to users. She works with consumers to provide advice on using available information to make wise investment decisions. So, without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speakers. Over to you, Mr. Vasudevan and Jayashree.
Thank you, Aradhana. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining the Magic Bricks webinar series. Today we have a very important speaker with us. Somebody who has formulated, who has been very vital in formulating the seismic safety standards for the country in the National Building Code, and in the light of the 2 earthquakes that have happened in Nepal, and the concerns that various Indian consumers feel about their own safety in the event of an earthquake. What should people do? How should they ensure that your safety is ensured? And this is why we brought Mr. Suresh, who is probably one of the best people to address these concerns. Over to you, Mr. Suresh.
Thank you, Jayashree, and good afternoon, dear listeners. I would like to make a very brief presentation to convey some of the concerns, Jayashree. In this topic, there is a feeling about earthquakes and what happens to that. There's a general feeling that earthquakes are is what destroys people. Not at all. Earthquakes do not kill people at all. It is a badly designed and constructed buildings that collapse and bury inhabitants and kill people. In the Bhuj earthquake on the 26th of January, we had so much amount of damage in less than 1.5 minutes time period, and all the houses, not only of the poor, the marginalized, disadvantaged, all their houses, more than 8.5 lakhs of houses came down to ground zero. What is interesting is in Gujarat earthquake, not only that, even the middle income and the high income housings were also brought. It's a great economic leveler from that point of view. But more so for the poor and marginalized, because they deal with substandard material, construction systems, etc. They are the ones who suffer the most. So therefore, it's a classic situation. It cuts across economic classes, depending upon the way you have planned, designed, and built your houses. And if it's not done properly, all of them will get collapsed over there, like what you saw in Gujarat, 8.5 lakhs house in less than 1.5 minutes. And you saw the way in which Nepal earthquake also has brought so much of misery to thousands of families. They're all buried and the buildings are all collapsed. But what actually happens is an important issue. Now, what type of damages do happen in building is an area onto which I would like to get in and give some information on that. What will happen is, if you have a multi-storied apartment coming over there, and where normally the ground floor is normally kept for the car parking, and that's normally done in large number of builders, whether you see it in Gurgaon or in Gujarat or Maharashtra, where parking is an important thing. So that's called the soft story or lower story, and the whole thing gets buckled, and that's called the soft story collapse at the ground floor. So that's primarily because you have not done the earthquake resistance through appropriate strengthening required for ductile detailing. I'll come to that a little later. The whole building collapses like a pack of cards, like you saw in Gujarat it happened. You also have, and in earthquake, the most important thing is the slimmer the better. So you don't want too much of weight in the building. So if you have very heavy floors, water tanks on top, and flow and pools at the upper level, these are things which can create problems, as you saw in the Gujarat earthquake and also Nepal earthquake as well. You also must not have done the design of the basement floors, and then you will have a problem there. And the next area is the issue on the building plan itself. You make a lot of projections and all those things. That also is not in a formal design form. So these projections and depressions that horizontally and vertically can also create problems of the building separated. Suddenly the staircase being knocked out, separating out, or a room being knocked out separately and standing separately, etc. And equally important are the other features of, which is very important, especially for multi-storied building, the issue of the issues of shear walls and bracing. Now, this particular aspect is very important, especially for larger tall buildings, 5 stories, 10 stories, 20 stories, and more so 30 stories, etc., which is now the order of the day in most of the big cities. So, absence of shear walls and the bracing, that means you should be able, so building should not, it should be in a flexible form, not a rigid form, and therefore you should ensure that the right shear walls and bracing are provided. And the engineers should have designed things in such a way that the staircase should not fail due to inadequate flexibility and what I call the wrap-on effect. That's what the engineers will tell you. Many cases this has happened over there in damages. And equally important is collateral damage due to collapse of one building on the adjacent structure. Your structure might be good, but that one building can collapse and fall onto the other building is also another problem. The next is very, very important, especially which are closer to river or soft soil. It will be like a liquefaction of soil. It will be like a mixie. If you want to put a mixie with a milkshake or a mango shake, that's exactly what will happen in an earthquake. The whole building with the water and soil below, the whole soil becomes liquefied. So, and the whole thing collapses immediately because you have not done the right foundation design. Very important. For example, in Delhi, the whole Yamuna Push area or any river area in any city where water bodies are there, where the soil is very soft, this liquefaction of soil is a very important component. Whereas the same thing if you do on a hard rocky area, liquefaction problem will not be there. So therefore, soil investigation and related things for any particular site becomes equally important. The next major component is you have not fixed your roof members, either made of steel or timber, and the roof covering, so whole thing can fall out and collapse and fall down. And that's exactly what happened in Nepal. And Nepal has got this particular problem over there. And as I said, you have to take care of the other major issue of the bracing and the anchorage related issue. And this is important. I call all these particular things as the fundamentals, which is called the in the design features, I call them the A, B, C, D, E. A is anchorage, B is bracing, C is connection, D is detailing, and E is external environment protection. If you do this, after in every one of your buildings, if you have a checklist for that, you can be 100% sure your building is not going to collapse and you're not going to fall under the debris of that. So therefore, it's very necessary that these, I intentionally brought out those how buildings collapse, and therefore how in the design and construction of your building, you take care of these, and there are large number of options for that depending upon the material. You can make it out of mud wall, you can make it a stone wall, you can make it a brick wall, you can make it a concrete column and beam. So depending upon the nature of construction that you do in a village or a small town or a medium town or in a big city, you can't expect everything to be made only of concrete and alone. So we have to take care of the right level of features to deal with that particular thing. And that's very, very important because India is a very large country of continental proportions, and therefore we are very particular that this has got to be dealing with not only the existing buildings, we already large amount of housing stock available, like for the houses in which all of us are living. That is existing building. I should see whether my building is safe. Many people can tell you at seeing your building whether tomorrow if an earthquake comes over there, will your building, which is already built, has it incorporated any provisions? Is it safe, etc.? Otherwise, you can strengthen that for disaster resistance. We call it retrofitting. We do large number of strengthening features for the building. So tomorrow when the earthquake comes over there, that strengthening features will ensure that the building will not collapse and fall down. So retrofitting, repairs, renewals, and maintenance are the things that we require for existing buildings. So today when there's no earthquake anywhere in the country, there should be a major effort in doing a survey of all these buildings. Gujarat did that for large number of their cities and towns there. Now, similar things should be done in all major cities to see if it is already in a seismic zone, 5 or 4. As you know, India is divided into 5 seismic zones, 4 seismic zones to be exact. I use the word 5 because the topmost is 5, which has got the highest amount of effect or earthquake effect, similar to what you saw in Nepal or you saw in Bhuj earthquake over there. Seismic zone number 4 is where Delhi is. Seismic zone number 5 is also the complete of the Himalayan region, northeastern states, Sikkim, then Himachal Pradesh, Jammu Kashmir, and Gujarat region and Andaman Nicobar. And seismic zone number 4 is closer now to Delhi and neighboring states in a very large way. 3 is also bad, like Maharashtra, where the Killadi earthquake took place there. And seismic zone number 2 is a little lower. So depending upon which location, so all of us who are listening to it should know which is your city or town or village. They should know which particular seismic zone your particular village is. Is it in seismic zone number 5, seismic zone number 4, 3, or 2? Depending upon that, your new design for the building, all the buildings that you'll have different types of design. The design required for seismic zone number 2 will be less intense, but as against that, if you're seismic zone number 5, you require large number of features to be incorporated for making the building strong against earthquake. The right construction features should be there. The building should be flexible. That means it should be able to respond and not a rigid masonry structure, the whole thing which will collapse there. The whole thing is to reduce the mass. Don't do too much of weight on that. Japan has shown all over the world how by reducing the mass of the building, they have been able to have earthquake-resistant construction into a very large way. Now, a most important thing is that you should also know that in your particular city or town, you will have a building enforcement group there, namely a municipal corporation if it's a big city with a mayor and municipal commissioner or 5 lakhs population. But most of that's only about 160 odd cities there. But the remaining are small municipalities, 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, 1 lakh, 50,000 population, etc., like the Hapurs, the Meerats, and all those small towns when you move out of Delhi, either in any state. So the local building bylaws and building codes and planning standards, these are the documents under which you have to submit a building plan for approval. No construction can take place formally unless you get a building permit. The building permit is given by the local bodies. Unfortunately, till very recently, most of these particular regulatory documents did not have one line of disaster. Earthquake ka shabd bhi nahi tha. So no question of any earthquake. So nobody would have submitted a building plan to deal with earthquakes. This is the reason why large number of the buildings collapsed, because the local bodies did not insist on this, because it did not have provision in their building bylaws to deal with this particular aspect. And therefore, what will happen is this will create a major problem. So hopefully now all these documents are now getting, now the risk perceptions are now being brought in now. Now, therefore, if you do that particular thing, if your local building bylaws, as you would see from the vulnerability, if you know your city is seismic zone number 5, 4, 3, 2, or if it's a cyclone area, etc., you would know, first of all, you should know, does the city have appropriate awareness? Does all the citizens know? How can we create awareness? So there are various ways by which they can awareness, like malaria problem, other related problems over there. The citizens through what committee or the local body through newspapers can indeed, we are in seismic zone number 4. That information should go. And if it is seismic zone number 4, everybody in the city, radio can be used, television can be used, newspapers can be used to create this awareness in a very large way. And therefore, once you know you are in a size, then the next question that I'll ask is that whether are you aware that your particular building has been designed to take care of this damage? Otherwise, am I in an unsafe building? This is everybody's worry. Am I in a building which is unsafe? That's a major worry. And that can only happen when I have this techno-legal regime, namely those provisions should be there in the building bylaws, in line with the National Building Code or the earthquake codes brought out by the Indian Standards Institution. There are a large number of codes available for design of the building, construction of the building, etc. I don't want to read out those standards there. They can open out later. And more importantly, associate the right professionals. You have a problem in the court, you go to a lawyer. You got a problem with your health, you go to a doctor. You got a problem with your income tax, you go to a chartered accountant. So like that, you're going to build your own building there. Go to the right professional, a good architect and a good engineer. More importantly, earthquake, architects can't do much. The engineers can do a lot. So the engineer and the structural engineer, 2 words are used. For buildings up to around 500 square meter and up to 5-storied building, a normal engineer, graduate engineer can do the work. But beyond that, if it is more than 5-storied and beyond 500 square meter, then you require higher specialization required. You require a structural engineer with masters in structural engineering. A normal engineer with BE can't deal with that. It's all provided in the code. That's why using the right professional. So you have to see what building. Are you in a 20-storied building, a 10-storied building, 5-storied building, or a single-storied building? So if it's a single-storied building, it's enough to have an engineer associated. But if you're going to a taller building, you require a structural engineer being brought. And for the poor, especially low-income group who may not be able to go to all these people, what we are suggesting is that either the community architect or engineer or the technical hand from the local body or the housing board or the slum clearance board, they should provide the user-friendly advice. So they will be the technology support, because each one of them can't go and approach an engineer or a structural engineer. A big housing board or a big builder can associate all that. So this is an important component. So one at the individual level as well as at the larger level. And the next major issue that comes over is that where you can put control mechanism. One is getting the approval from the local body, so they will ensure that your building plans are cleared in line with the provisions there. And then during construction phase, very importantly, they'll go through the completion certificate and occupancy certificate also. But before that, you require a loan. A housing loan is needed. Once you get a building plan approved, a techno financing regime is where, in fact, many housing finance companies are now saying that when they get the building plan approved, they're also ensuring that the safety features are there. Like, I'm aware of many housing finance companies who burned their fingers, who are given money in Gujarat, but those houses were not earthquake site configurations. So all building collapsed and they got into problem. Whereas I remember when I was a CMD HUDCO, all those ones which we funded there, they were safe and they could stand the test of time, so we didn't lose the money. So the techno financing regime will ensure this is a tool by the housing finance company and banks. When they give the home loan to be given to people, they will ask, but this question will be asked. This is going to be in Ahmedabad, this is going to be in Rajkot. So they'll ask a question. So have you done what is needed for the approval based on the building plan approval? Unless you have the building plan approved with these features, they will not sanction a loan. And the last and most important is construction stage. So construction, in a plan you can always do that. A good design can be, naksha to ban sakta hai, but actual construction is the most important thing. So this is where the right level of construction features are there in the column and the beam, the plinth beam, the lintel beam, corner reinforcement, so that all these details which are there in the bylaws, and this can be done by training of the local masons in a large way through what we call aisa kare, aisa na kare. Most important, aisa na kare is more important. The wrong way of doing of construction between the foundation to the walls to the roof, all those details are very, very important. Why buildings collapse is primarily because, as I said, wrongly designed and wrongly constructed building is the reason why all this happens over there. Now, these are all good, but then what's happening is all this can be done now today because you're learning after a disaster. Like, for example, we had the Bhuj earthquake, you have the Kiladi earthquake, Uttarkashi earthquake, Jabalpur earthquake. Only after the earthquake, we all wake up. But whereas we know that this is seismic zone number 5, 4, and 3. We should do, therefore, a major shift in focus is needed. What can we do to make homes? That is the question today. How can we make our homes safer? So, if I'm able to predict that, if I'm prepared for that, if I can prevent that, I can do the right planning on that, I provide the right protection on that, I promote, give right publicity, people participate in that. So that is a series of efforts which are called pre-disaster. Before the earthquake comes itself, you do everything that is needed today itself to make it safe, so that when the earthquake comes, you don't have to worry at all. But that has not happened in India so far, but all developed countries already happening there. Now what we are doing is a post-disaster. Earthquake again, so many houses are damaged completely, so many people lost their life, so you're rescuing the dead body, live body, recovering them, providing the relief, rehabilitation, reconstruction of all the damaged houses, or to do some repair or renewal and retrofitting for the existing building there. So our whole thing is we have to shift from the R series where we have put all our efforts so far, the post-disaster initiatives where we have put all our effort, we have to shift it towards the pre-disaster mitigation efforts so that we can do something today, something in the next about few months, something in the next 1 year before any earthquake strikes any part of India. You know, that's what, after the last earthquake at J&K, which took place 5 years back, no earthquake has happened in India other than this aftershock earthquake from Nepal. So we should do in every state the pre-disaster mitigation effort so that we can plan the building, design the building, construct the building, provide provision of the building bylaw so that tomorrow when the earthquake strikes, we are safer than what you are. I am not saying 100% safe, safer, I am using the safer. There's nothing like earthquake proof. There's only earthquake resistant building. I can't build a building, otherwise the cost will be phenomenal over there. I just wanted to give an interesting example. After the Gujarat earthquake that took place in January 2001, 13,600 people died. 8.5 lakhs of houses got damaged in less than 1.5 minutes over there. 1 month later, in February 2001, Seattle, the Bill Gates city in US, it had a bigger earthquake, bigger than the Gujarat earthquake. Only one person died of heart attack and not a single building collapsed. Why? So what is the difference between, we have to make all our cities like Seattle, because Seattle also knew they are also in a seismic zone number 5. So their building bylaws and codes provide for that. Nobody, neither the builders or the engineers or the architects or the municipal corporation dare build anything, permit to build anything other than earthquake safe. That's why when the earthquake happened, not a single building collapsed over there, as I said, and nobody lost their life because of the earthquake. So therefore, we have to use that situation like what Seattle has done over there. And one more important thing is 1 crore of rupee, just for information, on a tall building if you want to spend for pre-disaster strengthening and retrofitting, is you, instead of that, if the whole thing is not done now, you want to do it later after the whole buildings are collapsed there, you should spend about 10 crores. That means effectively 10 times the cost for post-disaster mitigation as against 1 crore that you can spend today on that. Naturally, normally what happens in every building, around 3 to 5% will be the additional cost. Suppose somebody asks for earthquake resistance, how much you will spend on that. For a normal building of masonry or concrete or column and beam and slab, etc., around 3 to 5% will be the additional cost for the earthquake resistance features. But if you want to retrofit an existing building, strengthen that building, cost can go up to 8 to 10%. So you have a band between 3 to 5 for entirely new building for the safety of the building, and that's a must. It's not an additional cost. You did not put it, therefore you feel it as an extra cost. So for that earthquake situation, you have to put those particular features over there. So that should be taken as a normal cost. And for the other one, you don't want that to spend 10 times more later and start crying for that. And I think if you do all this effort of legal regime, the right professionals, awareness being created, etc., and also deal with the construction features. The occupancy certificate also is given rightly. The people will have a confidence level that they got the building plan stage, they got the clearance from the local body of a safe building. It's constructed also safely, and that will be given through the completion certificate by the engineer. Based on which the occupancy certificate is given by local body. Then you have a sense of confidence in because you and your family, older, your parents, your younger children, they're all staying in the house in various floors of the house. You got to give confidence level and safety level among all the occupants of the house over. If you do that, we can work together for creating safer building, durable building which will stand 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and more importantly, sustainable human settlement. But that's a powerful message I want to put across, Jayashree and the team over. I hope I've been able to put across some of the concerns in the limited time.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh. That was extremely informative. Let's quickly go to queries. We've got a large number of queries rolling in. Our first query is from Samir, who asks, how can an ordinary person understand that a structural safety certificate is required? Essentially, what is the structural safety certificate and what can an individual do?
Very nice question, Samir. You should put, other than the professionals who deal with that, namely the architects and engineers, that's a small number in India, around 50,000 architects and about 10 lakh engineers. But India has a population of 125 crores. So all of them become ordinary citizens. They are not architects or engineers. So I think it's just like Samir, you want to see that you're keeping yourself fine. How do you know you're keeping yourself fine? You're keeping fine, or your wife is keeping fine. You go to a doctor at periodic intervals to check up your blood or urine and various other health parameters. So they give it's fine, no sugar, etc., etc. Like that, you're building a house for the first time in your life. Either you build it on your own on a new plot, on yourself a single-storied building or a double-storied building, or you go to a builder who has a multi-storied apartments and you're going to buy a flat on that. So therefore, it is essential that just like the doctor or the lawyer whom you use for your other cases there, you will have the engineer who will be designing that particular building structurally, and you should ask him, young man, you are doing this particular building for me, and this is in seismic zone number 4. Have you taken care of all the features over there? He will have to give the certificate. We go by the doctor's certificate, your chartered accountant certificate, your lawyer's. We take care of the complete documentation given by a lawyer over there, affidavit. So like that, the structural certificate will be made available by the engineer whom you are associating to deal with this. Or if you are going to deal through a builder, you should demand from the builder before you sign and say, I'm ready to take this flat. He has got to prove that the building plans are approved, and these are the structural engineers associated with that, and their structural safety certificates are also available on that. I hope I've been able to put across. So it can be at an individual level for you to do your individual house, or to deal at the higher level for taller buildings through the builder, along with the professionals associated with the project, through the building plan approval and the safety certificate. Many builders are now advertising. I've seen at least about 7 builders, leading builders, say, this is in seismic zone number 5. We have provided all the seismic safety provisions in our building. This is in seismic zone of something in Gurgaon and Noida I recently saw. We are in seismic zone number 4. All the earthquake resistant features are incorporated. So that gives a good marketing information and also gives the confidence level to the consumer. Samir, I don't know whether I've been able to.
Yeah. Mr. Suresh, we've got Rajat Kumar Sharma, who's taking this conversation one step forward and saying that in smaller cities, in B-level towns, where many of the buildings are not engineered buildings, contractors or builders are constructing multi-story buildings, and probably he feels that soil checks and earthquake codes have not been applied. He says in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and so on. How do you convince the builders that they need to provide these certificates, and what should we do as individuals?
I think your question covers 2-3 points, Rajat. First of all, you're not talking of big cities, you're talking of tier 2 and tier 3 cities, population of about 1 lakh or 50,000 or 20,000, etc. Not big cities there. Now, and if it is a small cities, it won't be multi-storied building so much. It will be predominantly up to 5 stories or 2 stories, etc. So therefore, there also, whether this is going to be in a big city or a small city, whatever checks are required. As I told you a little earlier, liquefaction is a very major problem. So the nature of soil that is there below your below your building, if it is too soft soil with high water table, liquefaction is a very major concern. So those particular checks that engineer dealing with your project has to deal with the particular thing, whether it's an individual house or a local builder is going to deal with that particular aspect. Now, these are things which are fundamental for them to deal. It is like the diagnosis done before the prescription is written by the doctor. They also go through all the tests over there, and based on the tests, use this medicine, use that medicine. So the design is also based on that particular soil investigation, water table level, is a soft soil, hard soil, etc. Is a must do on that, whether you do in whichever town. So if you're going to deal with the individually your own one house to be built over there, then that one engineer can help. Otherwise, the builder's engineer has to do all this investigation. But having
so
said
essentially
that,
what you're saying, Mr. Suresh, is that you should ask for the diagnostics report from the builders, so that like you take the diagnostics report to a doctor, you should have the diagnostics report
and they'll get the prescription
of
based
the
on
building.
that. Use this medicine, use this surgery, etc., treatment, whatever. So, very important. But Jayashree, you also said with Raj's question, one more thing of a large number of single and double-storied buildings which are there in villages and small towns. So there we don't have to do a detailed design there. So there is also a very interesting Indian standard called IS 4326. I repeat the figure 4326, which will give large number of construction features which can make the building stronger. You don't have to go to an engineer to design that. Yeah, a low-income person's house or middle-income person. More than 70% of houses in India are done with no engineers and architects. I want this message to get across to all our interesting readers, who are listening here. I said only 30% of all the buildings are done with good builders, architects, engineers. Otherwise, each are done by people themselves with the Rajmistri and all that. So, at the Rajmistri level to give the information, what are the features required at the level of foundation? A plinth beam, a lintel beam, a sill beam, corner reinforcement to be done, etc., etc. So, in a mud building, in a brick building, in a stone wall, masonry wall building, etc. For smaller building of 1 to 2 stories, and which are there in large number of villages, and how to make the building earthquake resistant, there are large construction features there. We have to disseminate this information in a very large way. That's very important.
Mr. Suresh, we've got Dilip Elikal who's asking, going forward from what you've said, Dilip Elikal is asking, I've read a lot about retrofitting in the newspapers during this month. Can you list down 5 components which I should take care of while getting my house retrofitted?
That means you already are living in a house which is not designed and constructed based on earthquake resistant features, Dilip. So you want, but you are a very conscious citizen. Now you have read about it. I want to make my building stronger. So from that particular point of view, there are 2 Indian standards which are there, which I want you to kindly look in, which is called IS 13920 and IS 13935. These are the standards along with the National Building Code, which gives all the works for repair and seismic strengthening of buildings through retrofitting there. For example, it will talk in terms of your columns to be retrofitted, your beams to be retrofitted, to give the additional strength. Effectively, you're talking about a feet not strong, your arms not strong. You want to give the right level of strength for doing that particular aspect. You can do that in respect of the masonry wall, which is solid masonry. You're putting the keys into the particular wall, like what we did in Latur earthquake as well as Jabalpur earthquake. Old buildings, how to make it strengthening that particular wall is providing those in between those particular small beams at the plinth and lintel level. And if cracks are there, we do stitching that particular, that's the word that we use. Engineering stitching is a methodology where you put either glass or tile or any particular thing to coming as stitches coming along the crack in the 90 degrees direction. That's another major component turning. And another very major component is on the anchorage issue. That is where the problem is coming between the foundation to wall, wall to roof, and the roof to the connecting points there. All those particular things which are important. Your doors and windows corners can be retrofitted by strengthening the jambs. Jambs are where the door frames and window frames are there. You strengthen that particular thing also, including corner reinforcement. So these are the broad areas for an immediate response. I would very strongly advise you to kindly go through the following 4 standards. I repeat once again. I'll still slowly. IS 13827, IS 13828, IS 13935. So these are the 3 which are very important for the retrofitting. And after the last half-story collapse that you saw after the Kobe earthquake and Gujarat earthquake, where large number of group housing apartment buildings require the parking spaces on stilts there, stilts are also a major problem. So you have to have the columns to be jacketed with ductile detailing of reinforcement to be provided to take care of this particular one, because you can't suddenly build a wall around that particular thing because you're using that for car parking. So these are some of the features, Jayashree, I thought I'll share to Dilip.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's very useful. There is Noel Abhishek who's asking, what states fall in seismic zone 1? I think you need to explain the concept of zone 1 to 5.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question he has asked over there. For somebody who has been dealing with the code right from 1965 or something like that, that's exactly 50 years back. First time it was the 5 seismic zones were there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then what has happened is one is actually as good as no major. There is small tremors taking place, but no major problem which will happen structurally to the particular building. You can't say there's no forces there. So therefore, over a period of time, when he brought out the 1990 version, then the 2000 version, now we are now in the 2015 version now, what has happened is even though the seismic zone 5, 4, 3 and 2 are retained there, seismic zone number 1 is now out of Indian map, effectively. So anything which are coming in 2 and below are put together as 2 to show that at least amount of strengthening is provided there. I hope that clarifies the question.
Yes, I think so. Actually, what he wants to know is what are the highest disaster-prone states?
And that I told no. Seismic zone number 5 are those states which are the complete Himalayan region, the J&K region, Uttarkashi, northeastern states, some portion of the upper portion of the Bihar area, the J&K already told. Also Gujarat, large Kutch region is seismic zone number 5. And also Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Whereas in Gujarat, the same Gujarat, if Kutch region is seismic zone number 5, Rajkot is seismic zone number 4. Ahmedabad is seismic zone number 3. I'm telling this because when the earthquake took place in Bhuj, all the 9 districts got affected. Some in seismic zone number 5, some in 4 and some in 3. None of them took care of the needs for each of the zones, sir. For example, if you are in Delhi, you are in seismic zone number 4. So you should be very careful. You should provide large amount of earthquake resistance in your particular building. 3, Maharashtra, large number of portion comes under that particular region there, and also large portion of the Andhra Pradesh, Orissa areas also come under seismic zone number 3. The moderate restrictions should be provided. 5 and 4 are the more critical. 3, reasonable amount of protection. 2, don't have to particularly worry because by now, with the normal construction features, column, beam system, which is a flexible structure which can oscillate along with the ground motion, shaking from below, buildings will be able to respond to the need. I said, no more rigid structures, go for flexible structure which can move along with the ground motion and come back. That's where the real answer is. The whole of northeastern people, the whole of northeastern region, Assam, Meghalaya, they have been watching this. And you know, traditional knowledge is phenomenal. The way in which they have the bamboo column or a timber column coming at intervals and horizontal bracing coming over there. And there is an acre wall. Again, it takes over the mass being lower, not a heavy wall. So it's a bamboo thatch with either cow dung or now they put ferrocement brick wall. And those buildings are able to withstand very well, because it is able to also resonate with the ground shaking that's taking place and come back to its original base. Instead of a solid masonry wall, somebody thinks that if I make a 2 feet thick wall, it's stronger. Not at all. As a matter of fact, you require a 9 inches thick wall or even lesser than that in the case of earthquake. At the same time, provide the particular frame structure within which all these walls can be provided.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've got Prashant Srivastava saying, buildings with 30 stories or more, will they withstand earthquake even if they are made earthquake resistant?
Absolutely. What 30 stories? Nothing. India is already getting into the 50, 60. I'm in Mumbai. I got a 100-story building coming up just now here. So But he has raised a very important point, because presently India's operating environment, maybe in 1960s we had a 10-story building was great. 1990, a 20-story building was great. But now in 2000, with the land cost, we go up to 30-story is a reasonable thing. But things are changing phenomenally in big cities, where the buildings are very tall and they go up to 40, 50 stories. Earthquake resistant features are predominantly taken care of in those particular buildings. But since he raised this question, I thought I'll give an interesting input which is required. There are any number of tall buildings of 100 stories in any part of India world, which can, in Japan and all that, which oscillates at a higher level and comes back. You know, they provide that particular system in that. There are also a large number of technologies by which base isolation technologies are there, like New Zealand are the one, namely the main superstructure and the ground. You isolate that particularly with the right dampers and also right level of rubber and other bushings there. So base isolation can also take place, so that the effect of the ground shaking is not entirely brought onto the building. So those are, incidentally, the Bhuj hospital, that is the first one which got damaged, into the collector's office and the police station, where those buildings should withstand for 100 years. So the Bhuj hospital has been redone exactly with this base isolation technique. Coming back to his main question, the answer is yes, you can go for 40 story, 50 story, but there's a very interesting issue that I thought I'll bring in. This is another disaster issue, because 200 out of the 648 districts of India are affected by multi-disaster, namely earthquake forces from below the ground and wind forces from above the ground. So cyclones come, like Bhuj, like this 200 districts have problems of both cyclone as well as earthquake, etc. So in such cases, what will occur is, beyond 40 stories and more, the wind effect will be more predominant, of the wind force and cyclonic effect, and up to 35 floors will be the earthquake effect in the particular building. Both are lateral loads, one coming from above the ground and one coming from below the ground. So in any case, lateral forces which come on hit the building are to be taken for design in such particular situation. Answer is yes, 50, 60, 70, whatever the number of building, earthquake resistant features can be incorporated.
Okay. Bablu Bhandari asked, what does this imply? He's seen an earthquake ad, a resistance ad, and he wants to know what this means. The house has earthquake resistant seismic zone compliant RCC framed structure. Does this make the building more resistant to earthquake?
Yes. Answer is yes, in a simplistic way, but that is not enough. You know, you have to also, I can have an RCC framed building, but not provided with the right ductile detailing. That's a very important word I'm using. Ductile detailing of reinforced concrete structure is an important one. There's a separate code available after the Gujarat earthquake came. It's called IS 13920. So you should also ask your builder, while this must be an RCC frame structure, does it provide all the ductile detailing for that as per IS 13920? Most of the people will not utilize that. So that makes an additional amount of strengthening of reinforcement of the column, namely if the column is 10 feet height, the bottom 2 feet from the ground and the top 2 feet from the roof, those have to be additionally strengthened so that you don't have the buckling effect taking place there. But there are various other things over there. RCC frame structure is not, by telling that that's not good enough, you have to provide large number of other features which are provided in IS 1893. So you should ask, IS 1893 and the National Building Code has large number of provisions. So to the marketing fellow who brought this advertisement, Bhandari should go and ask this question to Bhandari, you know the name of the
yes, Bablu Bhandari.
Yeah, Bhandari should ask from the builder. I saw this wonderful ad. I'm very happy. I feel reasonably comforted, but not fully comforted. So you should ask these additional questions also. Okay?
Yes. We've got Mohammed Faiz who asks a similar question. Maybe you would like to add a point or two. I plan to approach a builder to contract for constructing apartments. I want to make sure they are earthquake resistant. How should I ask from layman terms? So essentially, you have mentioned some of the codes, and I think he needs to ask about the compliance to those codes. If you would like to reiterate that.
Yeah, Sheikh Sahab, since you want to build the building and you want to have a contract for a builder who will come and build that, you can't do that unless you have a very good architect and a good structural engineer to plan and design the building. Coming and constructing that particular thing using a builder is one aspect, but you require the right person to deal with it. The overall building has got to be planned architecturally, as well as the structural design. The structural engineer has got to be associated, because you're going to have a high-rise building coming over there. And only after that design is done completely, but the builder will come in the picture, because he has to also ensure that the construction takes place in line with those drawings, with good quality control. The quality of material that you use of cement, steel, sand, brick, etc. also should be of the right particular quality, and the construction system should also be such that it is stronger and rightly done. So it will have a series of things of the planning and design stage, and large amount of it during the construction phase. At the end of the day, proof of the pudding is in the eating. Is whether column is strong, beam is strong, wall is strong, the staircase is strong. All that will come only if the staircase, even if it's designed well, but if it's not constructed well, it's not going to be useful. So to that extent, your question of I'm going to approach a builder to build, that will be the construction aspect. But before that, you should associate with the right level of professionals for the planning and design stage, and the one who can construct, and a good supervisory team, good construction supervisory team, to ensure that the concrete is poured rightly, right curing is there, reinforcements are put at the right places, etc., etc. Okay?
Right. There is Mamta Joshi who's asking, how can I make my 20-year-old home quake-proof? Do I need to lay the foundation again?
Mamta ji, there is no word like earthquake-proof. First of all, I want you to get it out of your mind. You can only make it earthquake-resistant. The only closer to earthquake-proof that comes over is some structure like nuclear containment structure. Your like atomic research, atomic reactors, and all the particular thing, which you don't want any problem to happen. Even so, I'm ready to put all the features so that I don't get the Fukushima. Fukushima, when the tsunami came and hit over there, after the earthquake, the problem was from the particular nuclear reactor, it started flowing, so you don't want to take anything. So in such cases, you can go to the highest degree of earthquake proof. Earthquake proof means even earthquake, nothing is going to happen. You know what I mean? So in our context, our idea is to make the building earthquake resistant. Namely, I would be able to have a reasonable amount of protection, so that during the earthquake, which comes about 1 minute to 2 minutes or whatever, when the earth shakes from below, your building structure is able to have its structural integrity, if I may use a word rightly, and it will not fall down, roof won't fall down, the column won't break, the walls won't break, etc., etc. It won't happen in such situations there, and you will be able to ensure that small marginal cracks would still be coming, not an issue. I can always repair that, because earthquake is one you can't prevent that. It will happen at a time, maybe once in an 8-year cycle, it will keep on coming. That visitation time is there. To your other question, retrofitting large number of your 20-year-old building, you take the help of a good engineer. He will be able to indicate which are the ways by which his walls can be strengthened, his roof can be strengthened. If there's something required for the foundation, you don't have to remove the foundation, not at all. Not at all. But there is what is called, you are able to provide a plinth beam. You can at the plinth level, you will be able to put an additional beam. At steel level, you can put an additional beam. I told the masonry can be stitched, because earlier you put a solid wall without those features there. So you can put those reinforcement details at intervals, which I told you all are available in this codes, which are IS 13935, as well as for masonry structures, it is IS 13828. So those codes will give a complete idea of how to seismically retrofit and strengthen your existing building on that. But it's a very good question Mamta ji has asked. 20-story, 20-year-old building, she is very particular. She's conscious. What is to be appreciated, she's conscious that there is something like strengthening in existing building. That's hope for the country. Because you have as much as for the 125 crores of population, you have roughly about 30 crores of buildings available all over the country. So everybody should get a feeling that is my building strong? Is my health good? That question should come to in everybody's mind. Then this question of strengthening an existing building is equally important. As I said, you spend some little money, but it's better than when the whole thing gets damaged and you reconstruct the building. Get me?
Actually, we are moving towards a scenario where people are getting aware that diagnostics for buildings is equally important like diagnostics for your health checkup. There are a couple of people who have come back to the queries that you've answered. Noel Abhishek, who had asked which are the states that are in zone 1, he's saying, so is it safe to say that if a seismic zone is 2 or less, are the buildings safe there? This is one query, and I'll ask the second query also that has come from Kochi. Manoj Devanathan. I live in Kochi. Although it is in a low-risk zone, tremors have been felt lately. Why does this happen? Any ecological reasoning behind this? Is following building codes the only way out?
Okay. I think I'll ask the first question on seismic zone 2 and 1 there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. You will have a larger comfort level. You can sleep much easier in those houses. It won't come and collapse onto your head. The building and the wall will not collapse there. You might get some small cracks coming here and there, but then it is not of a major nature. But with the reasonable amount of building technologies that are now already come into practice, because India has also gone through phenomenal amount of change in construction practices, and everybody is now coming down to all the corner columns being put over there and horizontal plinth beams being provided, and just below the window some detailing provided, just below the roof slab you put a lintel beam or something of that nature. With these type of pre-coil which is already provided for, you don't have to worry at all in seismic zone number 1 and 2. But since you asked this question, the standard IS 4326, which I talked about a little earlier, it's called earthquake resistant design construction building. So that gives you for different zones, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, what are the details of the strengthening needed. Obviously, if it is for seismic zone number 5, you require more amount of reinforcement needed. That will keep on coming down and down to the lowest minimum in the case of seismic zone number 2. Now let me shift on to Manoj Devanathan's question from Kerala. Yes, comparatively you are in a safer zone, but I'm aware that recently you have been getting large amount of tremors. Especially, don't forget, you have the complete Western Ghat region there. The whole of Kerala is, because you are in a rainfall area with the complete Western Ghat region there. Some of large number of these particular tremors, which also come from a mountainous region portion on that over there. To me, the way I know Kerala reasonably well is the few features if you are able to incorporate, it's good enough. Like for example, the issue related to the junctions of the walls, the junctions of the T-junctions between cross walls and the room, the reinforcement you provided there, a plinth beam, a sill beam, a lintel level beam, as well as just before the floor level, your corners of your doors and windows and jambs being strengthened to some extent. If you do that, I'm sure Kerala also will comparatively comes in 2 and 3 zone. You shouldn't get any worry. But your larger problem there is going to be problems of other natural calamities. Your other natural calamities going to be there is on cyclone. Large amount of heavy wind coming along with your southwest monsoon. Very heavy cyclonic wind that can come over there. Or problem of tsunami can come. Even the earthquake happens into the neighboring area through the ocean, like the eastern states got affected, like Tamil Nadu. You can have some portion of tsunami also. So that's also a disaster. So which is lateral force, you have to take care of that particular aspect also. Manoj, I don't know whether I've been able to give a reasonably comforting answer for you.
We've got Mohan Reddy who says, what is the effect of a 6-inch column in the event of an earthquake, and it's a 5-floor plus building? Do I really need to worry about buckling effect in such a case?
Answer is yes. You have to. 6-inch column is the lowest. Even if you go, there's a minimum size for columns. I told you, large amount of these particular things, if you as I told you, which have been done earlier, they have been doing the jacketing by providing the additional strength for those particular columns there. It also depends. Sometimes, even though I give an answer yes, I don't want to give a scare to him. But if he has already provided the internal reinforcement details of and that particular concrete is of a higher grade, normally you do a 1.5, 3 or 124 concrete, M15 or M20 concrete. But if you have done an M30 or M35 concrete and you have put reinforcement of a very large nature, sometimes the size can also give a little amount of wrong information. But on the face of what he said, it's a little area of concern. It would have been much better to do it a 15 centimeters, at least a 20 centimeter column. So that, because even as per the requirement of the code, concrete column there, you require some cover to be provided. Cover to be provided for the vertical reinforcement, all the ties to be provided, etc. So 6 inches give me a little concern if it is a structural load-bearing column. Okay?
Yeah. And we've got a couple of queries where people have asked, basis what you have said, how can one access these IS codes? Is there any website? That's Mohammed Faiz who asked a query earlier. And there is one more lady who says that, is there any company who checks this, or is there any method to check? How do they go out and start ensuring that they are earthquake safe?
Very good question. I think Indian standards are all available on the website. Of course, these are electronic version also you can get now these days. Previously is not available. There's a small, after there's all knowledge being shared over there, and therefore from that point there's a small price we'll have to pay for that particular, and Indian Standards Institution, which is now called the Bureau of Indian Standards. It is available in all the state, their offices are available. They can get access depending on whichever state you are. They can be in touch, or there's a website you can get access information on all these particular standards in a good way. So the next question from the young lady's question, yes, there are a large number of structural design engineering office who can carry out what is called a third-party check on your particular building. Your existing building, you want to just like going to a doctor to have a particular checkup, or your chartered account to go through your accounts, etc. Similarly, on the buildings also, they will be able to carry out a due diligence check, they call it, on that particular building, but you have to make available your drawings. Your originally built drawings and plans have to be made available. They will make an assessment of the particular thing and say what are all the strengthening features needed or not needed, or you're quite fine, ma'am, you don't have to do anything, you're in a good building. They might even give that. So there are any number of good structural consultancy team available who can make available that advice to you on that.
Dinesh Bhatt asks, which seismic zone is Bangalore in?
Dinesh Bhatt. It's a seismic zone number 3, Dinesh.
Okay. Now we've got Mahesh Farkade, and we are in the last couple of questions now. We are almost at the end of our discussion. But there are so many queries coming in. I'm sure you would like to answer them at some point. There is Mahesh Farkade who says, I have already purchased a 3 BHK home in Noida Extension and have not asked for any certificate related to earthquake resistance. Considering Delhi is under seismic 4, what should be my next step? He's already made his purchase, but it's under construction. What should he do?
Has he made an apartment or he built a house, a villa?
It's an apartment, 3 BHK apartment in Noida.
How many story building?
He hasn't given the details.
Mahesh has not given the number of stories?
No, he's posted a query saying he's bought a 3 BHK apartment in Noida Extension, but has not asked for any certificate to be.
You have to insist from your builder. Have you paid all your money? I've already got the possession of that. You have to immediately insist on your building plan approval from the Noida, as well as the completion certificate given by your builder, and the occupancy certificate given by Noida, and the structural engineer's safety certificate. You can demand that.
Okay. We've got Shiv Shankar Tevda who's asking, can we learn from Japan in developing earthquake-resistant homes in India? I think you said that in India also Northeast has good traditional conventional.
The answer to Shiv Shankar is that there's a phenomenal amount of awareness, even among the school children. Everybody knows, because earthquake comes at regular intervals there. Everybody is aware of the Mother Earth shaking from below there. So therefore, they are prepared for that. As I told you, the P series is an important thing from Japan you can learn, as against the R series India is having there. And another major thing is that the biggest lesson from Japan that we can learn after the Kobe earthquake is the soft story. You know, I told you about the lower, the parking floors there, that strengthening of the that's called the soft story collapse. That particular thing, the Japan's treatment is the best thing that helped the whole world. Another thing is the reduced mass for the walls. We are the one who construct. If you go to US, anywhere, nobody puts the way in which we put the walls, 9 inches solid walls, construction of masonry, stone masonry, brick masonry, concrete block masonry. I said, when you get across to, they're all lightweight material. The mass, if you are reduced to, because the earthquake force is nothing but mass multiplied by acceleration. So if your mass or the weight of the building is lower, acceleration is already there because the ground force coming. They can't reduce that. So lower the mass, the earthquake force on the building is lower. So the Japanese lesson is to build the particular slim and trim like the Japanese men and women.
Mr. Suresh, I think our users are asking lots more queries now. We will send your queries back to Mr. Suresh, and I'm sure he would be happy to answer. So keep watching this space, and we'll put these queries. Just I think a couple of people are asking: is Punjab in an earthquake zone? Is Hyderabad in a seismic zone? How do people assess? Where do they go to find out whether which zone they are in?
You don't have to, there's no nuclear formula for that. There is what is called seismic zone map of India. Like there is this particular vulnerability atlas is there for seismic zone. In fact, it's my mistake. I should have put that as a visual, where all parts of India are completely zoned as either 5, 4, 3 or 2 zones. Second zone is the least seismic forces, and seismic zone number 5 is most. 4 and 5 people have to be particularly a little more careful to ensure that all the safety features are provided. Some portion of Punjab, because of the J&K neighboring effect, is in seismic zone number 4, and large portion of them, and also Himachal Pradesh also close to that. So those which are closer to that will be 4, others will be seismic zone number 3. So, but information on that can be got from the seismic zoning map of India, which is there in the National Building Code of India, which is also in IS 1893, 1893. That is the basic standard of Indian standard design code. NBC 2005 version as well as the IS 1893 will give you all this information on in which particular seismic zone your particular city, big city, small town, village is located. Okay?
Yeah, and we'll take the last query of the day, and this transcript will be available on our the earthquake special microsite. So we will be putting it up on the Magic Brick, so you should be able to take it, have a look at it, and any queries, I'm sure Mr. Suresh will be only too happy to answer more. That's the last query that we're taking. Ashish Kabra asks, please tell me if it is correct to start footing of the building without touching the hard rock. Is it safe?
If it's hard rock available, we don't have to necessarily go. All your foundation has to rest onto a particular surface which will have the right bearing capacity. Now, obviously, that bearing capacity is available maybe without touching the rock. Like most of the buildings in a single story and double story, you don't go necessarily rock. You go for a minimum depth of foundation, and that particular depth of foundation has to be resting onto the ground which is the right soil bearing capacity available. Not necessarily you don't have to go to the rock necessarily. Only in the case of those multi-storied building, or when you go to pile foundation related thing, then you go and anchor it down to the rock level over there. So let's say 80% of the buildings in India are a single story or a double storied building, masonry done over there. So roughly around 2.5 to 3 feet depth of foundation below the plinth should be good enough, because the soil should take care of that. Unless it's a black cotton soil which swells during rain and shrinks during summer, which can create a lot of cracks coming. So those features, those foundation details have got to be taken into account in such cases. But if I am able to provide with all that, with a nice good plinth beam where I tie the whole footing before the masonry above the foundation starts over there, then that particular thing will tie up the whole foundation at one level. Even differential settlement can be avoided. Okay? Thank
you so much, Mr. Suresh, for such an informative session. I think the users have found it useful. They are coming back, asking further queries, and we'll definitely post these queries back to you and your answers to back to the users. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Suresh.
Thank you.
Aradhana, over to you.
And I'm really thankful to our guest speakers also for conducting this informative webinar with us. It was indeed a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Mr. Suresh. Thank you, Ms. Jayashree. I hope you have a great evening ahead. Bye-bye. We will close for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
1 hour போயிடு செகண்ட்ல how much time it took to make the presentation?